Hello everyone, we're hopefully live for this edition of In Discussion with me, Grant Turnbull. Again, thank you for joining us. This is the second episode of our web series In Discussion. And again, thank you for joining us, whether you're watching us live or you're watching a recorded version. I'm Grant Turnbull, I'm the digital content director rather at Defence Media and your host for today. If you're not familiar with our series, we basically discuss the defence and aerospace industry, but particularly focus on marketing communications, specialist media and general defence trends. So if you're a professional in any of these areas, then we think that this is kind of the series for you. So we hope you find this useful, and we really appreciate you taking your time out to listen and take part, and especially during such an uncertain time at the minute for the industry. Whether that's through COVID or other circumstances. So if you're watching live today, don't forget to ask us questions. If anything piques your interest, then ask away. We'll have time, hopefully at the end, to answer those questions. We're hoping for this to last around half an hour today. So let me have a look at the stream here. We seem to be, hopefully, live. I might have just gone through all that and it wasn't recorded, so hey, who knows? Have we got anyone in here today? I'm not sure we've got anyone actually in the chat today, but we seem to be live. We seem to be okay. So what we'll do, we'll introduce our guest today for the second episode of In Discussion, and that's Jamie Clarke. Hello, Jamie. Let me bring you up here. There you are. Hi, Jamie. Jamie.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. This is quite a handful to manage the software and then try and talk. And anyway, hopefully it's working fine. I've got no notifications that we're not being heard, so that's a good start at least. So Jamie, thank you very much for joining us today. Let me make sure that your audio is on, which it is. So you are the CEO of Chamois Consulting, and if we didn't know that, then your polo shirt obviously says it as well. So thanks for joining us. I'll explain from your bio very quickly in my intro. Your Chamois Consulting is a B2B and B2C marketing and communications consultancy, and Chamois represents several defence clients. So, reading through your bio here, Jamie, previous to that you were a marketing manager at Supercat, the vehicle manufacturer, as well as group head of marketing and comms at SC Group, which is obviously the group above Supercat. And then before your marketing career, you were a major in the British Army. So quite an illustrious career there, Jamie, from going from the army to obviously into marketing, and almost now in your current role meshing all that together and doing marketing comms for majority defence clients, isn't it? But maybe you can give us a little bit more kind of a flavour of what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for inviting me on, Grant. And I'd like to submit my online entry for my COVID haircut contest. So perhaps if anybody thinks they can beat it, you're doing pretty well there, Grant.
Yeah, almost down to my shoulders, I think.
Yeah, maybe we could have an In Discussion haircut contest afterwards and see if anybody's tuned in can beat us. But no, Chamois, I put it together 4 years ago now. When I was working client side, I had a team of suppliers and PR agency, advertising agency, creative agency, digital agency, etc. that were helping me to do what I did as a head of communications and marketing on client side. So we got it to work well. We had a good team of people. So I thought if I can pull that hub together and offer it to other companies, then the whole thing can continue. And that's where we started. Since then, we've done pretty well. We've got quite a broad spectrum of clients, some defence, some not defence, mainly engineering focused, but we've also got a leisure client. And we are working mainly with our clients on PR retainer basis arrangements. So we're managing news flow, issuing press releases, writing, clearing, issuing press releases on a routine basis. We also do advertising for some clients, but not all. And then we've got a wider marketing menu of services that people can select from as well, whether that be a product launch event, an exhibition, or anything, build a website, all that stuff. If we can't do it ourselves with our own team, we've got a good network of associate companies where we can deliver the full service.
So then going on to my next question, clearly you've had some experience of this now as a company, going through a fair few years, working with clients. Obviously we're in quite an uncertain and difficult time at the minute, and I suppose it's something that has just never happened before. I'm not going to say unprecedented, but unprecedented.
Yeah, don't use that word.
I know you've been advising clients on what other words to use than unprecedented, but so we live in this time now where it's just basically been, it's not happened before. So what impact have you seen, particularly on the PR side of things? What impact have you seen of the coronavirus pandemic, the crisis, particularly on PR and how companies get their messages out at this uncertain time?
Yeah, okay, interesting. So the first thing we saw was a complete freeze of all PR activity. All of our clients went quiet, and that was basically because they went into business continuity mode. They'd all had this set of circumstances thrust upon them, and they all needed to work out, first of all, how to survive, how to get through it, how to continue continue doing business, continue to deliver. And we went through a quiet period as they did that, and we gave them space to do so. And then once they're ready, they started to come back to us. And at different rates, depending on where those companies are in that recovery cycle, we've seen the news flow come back again. And to the stage now where we're being actively engaged by everybody. Everybody's got news to push out.
Yeah.
I don't think that good news in times of adversity is inappropriate. So we were still encouraging our clients, once they caught their breath and they knew that they were stable and that they could continue, to actually look for good news and continue to do that. And so we issued quite a few press releases through the last lockdown period that have been good news. And I don't think that's inappropriate, and I don't think the market does. I think it's actually nice to read good news when all we are is surrounded by bad news at the moment. So news flow can continue. And we've also worked with clients on statements of reassurance, so a direct communication to reassure clients and to reassure partners and partnerships and the industry in general that what the company's doing. It's, get ahead of the game. Tell people that you are there, you're still working, you're still delivering, albeit in a different way.
It's hard though. It's hard when such a crisis is going on that we've never seen really in our lifetimes, or a fair few generations, to put press releases out that sometimes look inward and company focused when there's such, obviously COVID has had such an impact on the economy, on families, on everything. And so were you never concerned that messaging could get lost? A project milestone or a contract win, maybe that was worth waiting until later. Did you not have that kind of thought?
No, I think that most people are actually looking for good news. So when you do see that rare bit of good news, we've actually experienced it having a higher impact. So some of the measurements that we do on the performance of a press release, for example, we've had some brilliant results. The media has been short on content. Exhibitions have been cancelled. There isn't the chance to gather news in the same way. So yeah, I think we've seen some great results by continuing. And you still have to be sensitive, and we would always draft a press release for a client that makes some statement about how the company wishes everybody the best and all that kind of stuff, because that's really important to show.
So it's got to be in the context. So it's got to be in the context of what's occurring.
Maintain an appropriate, positive message. That would be my advice. And also, we've done some press releases about direct COVID work as well. Some of our clients have been getting involved in PPE. And so we've done press releases on that. And I think that's a great thing when the company is actually showing that they're contributing. And if that's the case, why not tell the world about it and use that as part of your wider messaging?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a fair few companies, obviously, here in the UK. And I forgot to mention that you're not in the UK at the minute, but you're in Gibraltar. But we might get to that actually in a minute in terms of remote working as well.
Remote working models.
But we'll get to that. But we'll get to that. So obviously here in the UK, that's been a huge thing where you have things like the ventilator challenge, and I think there's been a real push to promote that and to promote that British industry is getting involved in things like that. So obviously that's something there. It's interesting that you say about measuring the impact of some of the PR that you've been putting out. I mean, obviously, can you mention maybe some of how you do that? Obviously, we're kind of we're going digital now, so I guess it's relying on those digital tools as well.
Yeah, it is. So we find that LinkedIn is a really good measurement tool. If the company has got a company LinkedIn page, then we can access the analytics on that. So we can look specifically at a post that points the reader back to a press release on the client website. We can see how many click-throughs have been from that. We can see how many people have seen it, how many people have seen it in the news flow, how many people have engaged with it, how many people have clicked on it, how many people have commented on it. So that's all good measurable stuff. And then if you look on the internal side of that, we can look at clients' website analytics, and we can see how many people have come onto a website and how the behaviors have changed as a result of a press release going out. And we're seeing big spikes in traffic onto a website, drawn into the news page, because that's where you should post your news on. And that would be a bit of advice I give any companies. If you haven't got a news section within your website, then work on creating one.
I mean, it's amazing that some companies actually still don't have a news page, or they don't think about some of the maybe contracts that have been placed with them, or milestones that they've achieved, or new products, and they don't put out a press release in it, and you just think that's easy, really. That's kind of your basic stuff. But we might consider that basic, but obviously, I mean, part of your job and part of our job a lot of the time is to say, well, you can use this as news, you can put that out as content. And it's amazing that a lot of companies they probably just don't have the mindset. I think that's obviously what our role can sometimes be, isn't it? Is to maybe inform them, educate them.
Yeah, exactly. We've often talked about having a corporate gift being a paperweight that sits on the desk of the person you give it to, and it says, "Is this news?" Because things happen in a business every single day. I mean, it is posted on our company LinkedIn page, actually, and if anybody is interested in obtaining it, then get in touch afterwards, and I'd be happy to send it across. But we've got the Chamois Pyramid of News and Content, and that's just a basic graphic that says this is how we think companies, in our experience, should communicate. Based on the top of a pyramid being your big news that goes out periodically every 4 to 6 weeks, for example, and then coming down the pyramid into the lower level news, and then weekly content, something of interest that might be a quick photo or little clip or something that you push out. So that's how we do it. And that's what we do, is we work with our clients to extract that news, because 9 times out of 10, the company's so busy doing the doing, nobody's thought, actually, this is great news. Yeah. So as soon as we issue the press release, we're straight on to the next one. What's the next story? Come on, let's work on if we don't know what it is, if it doesn't naturally occur, then we can work on how to create that.
I suppose this leads me on to kind of the next point as well about, we're talking about PR, we're talking about generating content, we're talking about, obviously for companies, it's a case of getting news out there for them, what they're doing, and it's about making them look busy, and a lot of time these companies are busy, and that's kind of something that you need to make sure to emphasize with things like content that goes out on LinkedIn, because I think an empty LinkedIn page or an empty news page makes it look like there's nothing that's actually going on. And that's the impression that a lot of people get. And so, it's about that perception that you're a busy, vibrant company a lot of the time, isn't it? So what I know we spoke about LinkedIn and kind of the socials and websites as well. My next point would be about traditional PR, and that's obviously engaging with journalists as well. So obviously as a journalist or content writer these days as well, that's how we kind of met, wasn't it? We've talked on stories, etc. We've met at international trade shows. How important do you still think that dealing with the dedicated trade press is? I mean, this is not only obviously a question just for defence, but it goes to other industries as well. How important is it for you though in defence?
I think it's really important. Traditionally, we would all bump into each other at exhibitions and events. That's how the sector's operated. And I think we're coming on to this later, but I think that's going to change. What we do is for our clients is to generate that interface with key media. And in doing so, we've been trying to evolve and to develop some more innovative ways. So, for example, rather than just issuing a press release, is there another way of getting a company's messaging out there? And one way to do that might be to work in partnership. So what we're seeing is freelance journalists, editors, publications, websites across the sector have not had the news flow that they would have otherwise enjoyed because the events aren't happening and that interface with companies is not there. So we've reached out as an agency and said, is there a way we could work more cleverly together where we generate a topic, maybe it's capability based, for example, rather than just being a product story. And we work with a journalist, we work with an editor to say, we will support you with content that comes from our client base that helps you to write a story of interest that is benefit to your publication or to your website, and talks about something that's of interest to a wider audience because it's capability based, but it does come back with case studies and facts and figures that come from the client base.
I suppose there's a fine line there, isn't there? Because and coming from my journalism background, I don't want to feel like I'm being influenced by a PR professional who's obviously got a vested interest in that company. So there's a fine line there, isn't there, between kind of suggesting content and suggesting kind of, you know, engaging interesting content, and then kind of sitting back and saying, but you're the editor, you're the reporter, whatsoever, and it's up to you to decide.
Yeah, and I think the way that content is changing, what you do in producing video content is really good, and I think that's a massive part of future communication. It's being more able to be accessed by smaller and medium-sized companies as well. I mean, the huge defence giants can afford the budgets to create beautiful film of the sort of quality you'd see on a TV advert, but smaller companies can get to the same level of quality. And that's something that you do, and that's why we work together, because you bring something to our offering that we can't do. So, I think working with the media in a more integrated way, if it's a win-win situation, who's ever going to argue? And as long as everyone respects where those boundaries are and might be, it's not marketing puff. We're trying to create interesting, topical articles that may talk about a capability area but reach back to the client to give a case study.
No, that makes sense. So what do you think of sponsored content then? Because I suppose a lot of publications now, and I think we are going to talk a little bit about publications just in general, because this is obviously a key part of a PR professional's job, is to work with these publications. But how do you gauge sponsored content now? That seems to be a key kind of revenue stream now for publications that maybe are struggling with traditional advertising, obviously print publications. So they're looking at various ways to bulk up revenue. Is that something that you've been trying to push as well? Is like advertorials or sponsored content?
Not necessarily. I prefer to create strong PR that is of interest to a publication. I don't want to pay for a copy in a magazine, because that's never going to work. I'm quite happy to place advertising for a client. That's different. But paying at this stage of the game, paying for that sort of direct advertorial type content is something that we wouldn't necessarily do straight away. I think it becomes quite obvious as soon as it goes out. It becomes very obvious to the audience that it's one of those kind of paid interview article type things, and therefore how many people would watch it right the way through. But I think from if we can create PR and news and topics and articles that are of genuine interest that don't have to be paid for in that way, then that's where the strength of our agency comes in, because we're creating that value for the client, but we're also creating that value for the media and the publications too.
It's kind of that you're keeping that line between advertising and editorial content, are you? Because I think that what we're seeing far more of now is kind of those two areas meshing together, and you're right, it can become confusing for the reader, and not only can it become confusing, it can also you can lose trust in that copy, because you're not entirely sure whether someone's paid for that independent journalist or publication to actually publish that. And so then you'll start to lose trust. And that is something that we've seen quite a lot of recently, is that if and this would be my advice to publishers out there, if you're going to put advertorial content out there, make sure it's actually says that it's sponsored content. Otherwise,
I think Instagram makes you do that, doesn't it? So
exactly.
A paid partnership declaration when an athlete's wearing that whatever product it is that they're placing. So yeah,
That's
I
right.
mean, I think there actually are some regulations around that somewhere as to what you can and can't do. I'm not the expert on that
No,
particular technicality
no.
of it, but
But I think that once that kind of image kind of sets in for certain publications that might be happening, I think then a lot of people lose trust, don't they? So I think I agree with you in that respect that letting the editors and journalists decide what is good content, what works for them, and that's independent analysis and expertise that's behind that.
yeah, I think there's a blurring of lines around all of this, and it will evolve over time. Um, Advertising is changing shape as well. I mean, some of the biggest defence publications have recently pulled back from advertising at all. Not mention any names. I think we all know what's been going on, and they're approaching things in a very different way. And so, yeah, it is different. Magazines, for example, traditional, and let's face it, the defence sector is very old school and very traditional in the way it's handled media. Up till now, and it's going to have to evolve to not become that fairly quickly, in my view. But people don't want to get a magazine through the post now to have to open it up, not knowing who's handled it, and that's just not something that, unless there is a vaccine and it takes the whole problem away. Even if that happens, who knows what the next one might be? As times evolve. So I think that has changed, and actually, it's no bad thing for the environment not to print hundreds of thousands of magazines, and the method of distribution is different as well, because a lot of the publications used to walk around the exhibitions, and that was one way of getting targeted magazines out to that directly to the sector. So I think drawing people back into a digital version of that is definitely the way ahead. But in my opinion, I think you've got to be careful not to hide them behind too subscription-heavy a wall, because you need to be able to access it. You shouldn't be, there clearly has to be a commercial relationship and a commercial model for any kind of publication. But a proportion of it needs to be visible, and you need to be able to get that out there.
And do you just so our kind of viewers are aware, do you just deal with digital advertising now, or do you still do a little bit of print advertising?
Well, I have to say that most ad budgets across our entire client base are dwindling. Traditional advertising is coming along less and less and less. The majority of our clients do a little bit here and there, just a tiny bit of targeted advertising, which we handle for them. But we're not, the days of companies having a big budget, the kind of size of company that we work with, because we're not working with the massive defence corporate giants. We're in a small to medium area. We're just seeing that they're not seeing the value in it. And any advertising that we might do tends to be led towards digital, because you can measure it, and we can show the clients direct click-throughs from that web banner or whatever it is that's out there that it draws people back, and therefore you can measure it and demonstrate its value.
I suppose the old metric used to be circulation for these magazines and distribution at events, and that's the rug's being pulled out from under that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny these print magazines that clearly they had a place on a reception desk at company facilities, but now in this scenario that's clearly not any worth for anyone, because those facilities either aren't open or they've got reduced staff, and that seems to be what's going to happen going forward as well.
Yeah, and grant credit to almost every single publication in the defence sector. They're all recognising that, and I'm sure you're seeing things evolve as quickly as I am. I saw one a couple of days ago to do a digital product launch, which was a publication. I assume that's a sponsored activity, because it's one particular company launching a product through a particular publication. But yeah, doing a virtual product launch is something that's obviously now being invented, and it's going to continue to evolve.
Sorry, Jamie, I'll let you go on.
Yeah, I just think that we've all got to work together. I mean, I'm a great believer that, particularly when times are tough, you should help each other and support each other. And I think there's a way for us all to work with clients, agencies, publications, whoever it is. If we're all working together to mutual benefit and helping each other out, then that's definitely the way ahead. But you can only do so much with the resource you've got. And to give you an example, if a particular client doesn't want to spend any money on advertising, and the publication is wanting me to advertise, I can't solve that problem. I don't have that budget. I can't magic it from nowhere. So we've then got to work out another way to work together. I think that's where this dialogue works, and the relationship that we have is important to work out how we can continue to work to mutual benefit. So it helps everybody.
Yeah, and I think everyone's kind of in the same boat at the minute. They see that the defence publishing industry particularly is in a state of flux, and everyone's kind of trying now to adapt, and they're adapting through urgency more than anything now, rather than just a gradual evolution, which is quite interesting.
I think if you see how the B2C world has evolved in terms of reaching audiences and driving digital performance marketing, it's massively ahead of where the sort of classic B2B engineering sectors are, which defence is firmly within. And we all go and Google something, and then 10 minutes later you're absolutely bombarded on all of your channels with adverts for whatever it is you just Googled. The B2B equivalent of that will come along where it's able to digitally target the right people with your messaging. And whatever that product is, if we can work the way that B2C has done, it is different because it's a smaller audience and it's not retail, but there's definitely some lessons to be learned, and we're working with our partner agencies to see if we can build some innovative ways to use this kind of technology in a direct targeted B2B way, because I don't think people are going to be going to exhibitions the way they used to do. So that's another way. You've got to find a way for clients to reach audiences, and I think there's definitely a stream of work in there somewhere. Not giving away any more trade secrets, but you get this.
Well, yeah, I suppose that brings me to kind of the next point as well, and I'm conscious that we're going to go over half an hour, but hey, it's quite an interesting conversation that we're having here. So that brings us to exhibitions, and we've kind of mentioned it briefly already, but that doesn't look like something that's going to be a format for potentially the rest of the year. And if it is, it's going to be in a very controlled way. And I think a lot of companies will deem that it's not worth the risk to send staff, particularly in large numbers, to these trade shows. So, I mean, you've mentioned already kind of some of the alternatives that you're pursuing, but I guess you're seeing a big push towards the social channels, particularly LinkedIn. I mean, for me, LinkedIn now is just a no-brainer for any company, and if you're not on there and you're not pushing out some kind of content on there, then you may as well not be doing anything effectively, because no one really will be searching out your news page a lot of the time. They will just be scrolling through LinkedIn or another social. I mean, is that something that you've seen as well?
Well, I'm seeing massive acceleration in follower numbers across our whole client base, because one of the things we do is look after our clients' social media channels for them, including LinkedIn. So yeah, I'm seeing the follower acquisition across the board, including my own company pages. I'm seeing massive increases in follower numbers. So it is a target. It's a great way to find your audiences, and actually it's free unless you pay for sponsored content. It's free. You can generate your own content fairly easily. If you want something a bit more professional done, then there's agencies around that can help you with that. And yeah, I think LinkedIn's a really, really powerful tool, and it's measurable. You can go on and see how many people have clicked on your content, and if you post it right and it brings you back to your website, then that's directly measurable within your own analytics as well. One particular client we did a press release for, DSEI. I think we generated over 65,000 people saw that content on LinkedIn alone. And of those, 24,000 or something actually actively engaged with it, with a sort of a click, like, or a share or a comment. That's huge. And that was just...
What do you think? Have you analysed that, and you've determined why that is? What was it? The fact that you included a photo, a video?
All of the above. First of all, it's got to be an interesting story. And if it's not interesting, then you need a clever PR agency to make it interesting. And then you've got to support it with decent media. So imagery is highly, highly important. If you can put video with it, great. But also making sure, and we mentioned it before, having a news page on your website. Everything you do, even if it's just an article or a blog or something, stick it in the news section and get it out there. And it's archived then there for future use. And if when you're posting your links, they go out, or bring the audience back to your website, then that's measurable as well. And we've seen great results from that, drawing people back in. But when they come back into the news page, you then need to make sure there's some kind of a call to action to keep them on your site. So yes, this is the news story. You've come in to read it. Would you like to know more about X, Y, and Z? Click here, takes you back to another part of the site, for example. So a call to action to bring people, keep them on the site and let them have a look around. So that it reduces your bounce rate. You don't want a high bounce rate where people are coming in, reading the story, and then disappearing again.
I suppose the difficulty and the challenge now for people like you and I is basically going to be the fact that we're not the only ones that see that LinkedIn's a great tool now for getting messages out. Most other companies now are going to see that, and if they don't, they're going to be advised, and probably other people are going to tell them that that's the case. So we're going to see a big influx of people using LinkedIn, putting content out. So there's equally going to be challenges there as well, I guess, aren't there? That you don't want to get lost in the noise.
Right. Now you got to evolve. You got to evolve, make it interesting. You know, just ask yourself the question: what am I interested in? What makes me stop when I'm scrolling through my news feed, sat on a train, or not at the moment, obviously, but sat at home scrolling through your news feed? What attracts my attention? And get ideas off each other, see what everyone else is doing, see what works, see what doesn't work. But yeah, and also vary it. We've been involved and been helping out clients with webinars that have been put out recently.
How do you find the kind of the engagement with webinars? Because I think a lot of companies obviously push to get webinars out fairly early on, and I think there's kind of a little bit of a webinar kind of fatigue starting to show a little bit now.
It depends how interesting it is. I mean, we've probably got nobody watching this because it's not of interest whatsoever, Grant. Hopefully we've got one or two. But no, to be on a serious side, I think you're right. I think it has its time, but it's about keeping it interesting and keeping it current. Talking about a topic that isn't just product based. Talk about capability. Talk about supporting products. Talk about upgrading products, talk about living with products, look at it from a user perspective, and sort of just make sure it's of interest to as wide an audience as possible, and it will self-generate its coverage.
And I suppose that's where people like you and me come in, where we live and breathe defence a lot of the time, and obviously you've got your military experience, and I've got military experience as well, so we know we've kind of meshed all those experiences together. And so we know more in general about defence as well. We're not just a kind of a bespoke agency that looks at various industries. And that's something that I think we're trying to push, and I guess you're trying to push as well. I'm not trying to make this into a sales pitch or anything like that.
It's not a marketing podcast.
No, it's not. This is all independent. It's not. But I seriously see the benefit in creating context towards everything. Why does it matter? And I guess from a PR perspective, that's vital for you as well, isn't it? Why does this actually matter? I mean, I think as a journalist, particularly, going from a newbie reporter up to an editor, the thing that remained constant was, why does this matter? Why do I have to care about this? Is it something that's going to change the entire market? Is it something that will change how soldiers operate, etc.? And I think I guess that's something that you're also looking at as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what we bring to the PR story is that user experience, because there's a couple of our team are ex-serving soldiers and officers, and we got that sort of that user perspective on it, which I think is important. So we help to shape something that's very much user focused, understanding what that particular audience wants to hear and what's important to them is part of how we do it. But also technical writing is important as well, and our copywriter is defence technology trained to master's degree level at Shrivenham. So when she's putting copy together for us, she's actually highly trained in the technology of military.
Hopefully not too much though, because you don't want to disengage with maybe more higher level. Mm-hmm. Jamie, I'm looking on our channel, and unfortunately we don't have anyone to ask us any questions today.
Okay.
But if
called them all off, have we?
I know it seems that way. It's my droning, monotonous northern voice, I think. But but anyway, we'll wrap it up there. But we really appreciate your time today. I really hope that this has helped not only yourself but myself, just kind of get an understanding of the subject area, and I hope it's helped everyone out there who's watching as well on the pre-record or listening to it as well. We hope to have audio versions of this soon, so it will be a semi-podcast. But again, thank you for joining us, Jamie. Chamois Consulting. You're on LinkedIn, you're on the socials, so go and check them out. And yeah, we are, and that's you. So I'll come back to me. No, thank you very much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Yeah, if you want to follow Defence Media, join us on LinkedIn. We'll have more episodes of In Discussion coming up where we're speaking to various experts in defence and aerospace industry. So we hope to see you for episode 3. Thank you.